Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jodie Solberg. I'm so excited to be here with my friend Bonnie today, talking about breaking free from yo yo dieting, that mindset and culture of dieting and embracing intuition and nutrition. So, very excited to have this conversation because I think it's such an important one. And I would love for us to just introduce ourselves first because I know we're in multiple places right now. So you may or may not know us. Again, I'm Jodie, and I am a certified master hypnotherapist. I have been in mental and behavioral health now for 25 years, and I've worked with a lot of women specifically who were dealing with all sorts of challenges around that dieting mindset and around being disconnected, around helping them to embrace their intuition, getting more connected with their mind and body because they are intricately connected, and helping them to shift habits. Those unhealthy coping habits and strategies and those patterns that we play out. Sometimes we learn that dieting culture from previous generations. We may have seen our mothers and our grandmothers do the yo yo dieting and go through utilizing dieting as something that was just a lifestyle. A lot of, and it can cause a lot of disruptive habits that aren't serving and supporting us as we get older. It's also in our culture, in our society, that we are programmed a lot of times for what is this ideal and what is it supposed to look like? How are you supposed to present yourself to the world? And it can cause, again, a lot of damage to our self esteem, to our confidence, and keep us really disconnected from that intuition that I love so much that Bonnie talks about when she talks about intuitive eating and breaking that cycle of yo yo dieting. So, Bonnie, I'm so excited to have this conversation today. I think it's going to help so many people and bring to the surface about this topic. And so I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are and your background because you have so much knowledge and expertise in this area.
Oh, thank you, Jodie. I am so excited and grateful to have this conversation with you and for all our audience members to be learning about this very important topic today. So as Jodie mentioned, I am Bonnie Giller. I'm a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and I'm a certified intuitive eating counselor. Now, I've been in practice for over 36 years, and I say that I feel like, holy cow. So I've seen a lot. And I will say also that my philosophy around nutrition and dieting has changed quite a bit over the years. Something that you had mentioned is about the disconnect. And I think that that's a very important point that I want to delve into here because there are those messages that we've received often from childhood. And those messages create certain beliefs that people hold about themselves or what they should look like. And more specifically, I guess I'm gearing this conversation towards women who have consistently tried to shrink their body and change their body and lose that weight through dieting and restriction. And what that has caused is a disconnect. It's a disconnect from their inner signals, their inner guide that they were born with. And they've given away that autonomy to making their own choices because now they don't trust themselves. And so, really working with my clients, I bring them back to that place of connection and learning to trust that intuition, trust that instinct that they were born with. I also do medical nutrition therapy. So if individuals have diabetes, cardiovascular disease, gastro issues, etc., I also work very closely through nutrition therapy for those individuals. But one of the things that I like to share around that is I do all of that through a weight neutral lens. And I say that because I'll say in the olden days or when I was in school, we learned to treat people with health issues by telling them you need to lose weight to improve your health. And ultimately, when they do lose weight through dieting and restriction, that weight ultimately comes back. So even if their labs and such have improved, it's very short term. And so there are ways to heal your gut, manage the diabetes, etc., without focusing on weight as the primary treatment. And it's really the messages that are out there in the culture and really helping people really just be aware and open to what are those messages, and how they've actually been pretty destructive in in their own belief system, as well as trusting themselves around food, eating, and their body.
I love that so much. What we do is so complementary, and I truly believe in a whole care team. And you're such an important part of that because, like you said, it's not about just a number. And I know that there are still doctors that will tell people, "Well, just lose weight
Right,
and everything will get better." And
right.
like you said, it's a huge difference in how that happens. And so when I work with clients who maybe that's what they've been told by their doctors, yes, I can help them to connect and get to those root causes emotionally. If they're doing emotional eating, help them to shift that programming and that mindset. But when we learn what not to do, we also have to learn what to do. And
Mm,
you have such a beautiful program and philosophy of how you help people do that by connecting to themselves and through that intuitive eating. Versus, like you said, getting into that diet roller coaster where, yeah, maybe their labs get better or they lose that weight or they get really frustrated because they can't do that and it's not working through whatever methods they've been trying, and they've tried everything, right? I'm sure both of us have worked with people who have tried so many different kinds of diets because that's not what it's about. And so, for anyone who's watching who doesn't know what intuitive eating is, can you tell us more
mm.
about like what intuitive eating really is about and what you want people to know about it?
Absolutely. I love that question because I know there's many misconceptions out there about what intuitive eating actually is. And so intuitive eating is about learning to trust your body again after years of dieting, because like I say, diets have stripped you of trust, the rules that the diets give you to follow. So you lose the trust in your own ability to make those decisions. So intuitive eating is learning to trust those signals again. So it's eating based on a physiological need to eat, hunger, fullness, so knowing when to start, knowing when to stop, as well as satisfaction, rather than just based on external guidelines and rules. So there's no counting calories or counting points or portions or anything like that. Instead, you're learning to listen to the messages of your body. Listen to what your body is actually telling you it needs, because the truth is, your body does speak to you. Your body does give you messages. It tells you what it needs. But because women have been sucked into the diet culture, not to their own fault, right? Because it's the diet industry that lies to people and misleads people. But because they've been following those external rules, they almost don't even know how to eat once they decide not to diet. And so many people will say that to me. Well, okay, I get that diets aren't sustainable. Like whatever results I get are short term, but I have no idea how to eat if I'm not dieting or I'm not having rules. And so through intuitive eating, you are learning to connect back to those signals, to the messages. And the other very important piece is through intuitive eating, it's about learning to let go of the guilt and the shame that comes with food, that's often associated with food. And when you're eating, what you're eating, the fact that you ate, if you're labeling foods as good and bad, like none of that happens anymore. And so we've got to let go of the guilt. So intuitive eating helps you do that. Let go of the guilt, let go of the shame, and ultimately truly have satisfaction and pleasure in eating again. And I think that that's a very important message to tell people. It's okay to walk away from a meal and say, wow, that was delicious. I have really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's so important because so many times people get in that all or nothing mindset,
Yeah.
like you said, where it's either I can have all the things, which you can, right? Within knowing what is going to make you feel good and how
Mm,
your body responds to things, right? So, but it's either I eat everything that's horrible for me, let's say, or I eat nothing, right? Or I have all these restrictions. So it's, one way or the other. And there's a lot of in between in that. And
Mhm.
it's that growth mindset that's so important versus that fixed all or nothing mindset of, how can I learn what does make me feel good? How can I learn those cues that my body's telling me, oh, when I'm full or when I'm hungry or when I'm thirsty or what I need? And I talk a lot about how from a very young age, we're taught to disconnect. When we
Mhm.
go to school, I think you and I may have discussed this before too. When we go to school, we're told, well, we are on somebody else's timetable. And so the bell rings, and until it rings again, or until you get permission from somebody else of when that's okay, if you're hungry, if you're thirsty, if you have to use the restroom, you don't have that choice. You can't just go when your body tells you that you need to go get a drink of water or to have a snack or to go outside and stretch and move. You don't have that ability. And so what happens is that gets shut down and we get disconnected. And so it
Mhm.
starts at a really, really young age that we just learn to shut ourselves down. And so when our body's telling us things, we blow it off, we override it, we just ignore it. And so it's a process to help people get reconnected with their
Right.
bodies and to learn those cues of what is it telling you? What's happening here? And so that's one of the reasons why I talk, like I said, a lot about how people get stuck in these patterns, in these cycles of disconnecting. But what is your take on why so many women in particular, like we're talking about today, get
Mhm.
stuck on this diet roller coaster and the yo-yo dieting? What are some of the influences that you see that get people stuck?
I think it's the culture we're living in, and we call it the diet culture because, you can't have a conversation for the most part with someone without them talking about what diet they're on or what they should be on, or the shame or the guilt about what I'm eating. I shouldn't really be eating this as they roll their eyes. And just the messages that are around there, the message of what a woman's body, quote unquote, should look like. And it's very, very damaging. And so then you have all these bells and whistles on all these diets, these diet companies, and they're making promises which really are false promises. And so they're giving you this illusion of, hey, you can get these quick results in no time. And yeah, women who are so desperate to shed the pounds are going to fall for that. They really are. And then the problem is it's not sustainable. So they'll lose the weight if they're a good, quote unquote, rule follower. They'll lose the weight. But then there's a trigger, could be an emotional trigger, a situation. Maybe they went on vacation, or, they came home and the food they thought they were going to eat for dinner, someone else ate. And now, oh no, I don't know what to do. And they, quote unquote, fall off the wagon. That's diet or language. And now all of a sudden they're regaining the weight. And now they feel bad and they feel guilt and shame until eventually they start another diet. And so there's this cycle, the desire to be, quote unquote, skinny, start a diet, lose control, overeat, binge eat, whatever destructive pattern that falls in, regain the weight, and then eventually, I want to do this again. I need to lose the weight. And so they're stuck in this cycle. And the messages of the culture and the messages, you know what? I say the culture. Who's in the culture? It's family, it's friends, it's doctors, right? It's the media, it's the celebrities. You could look like me too. It's the people who've done things to lose weight in an unhealthy way, but telling people, if I could do it, you can do it. And then people follow suit because of that desire that I'm not worthy, I'm not enough unless I'm in a smaller body. And that is pretty much what diet culture is leading people to believe. Now, I will say that if this individual had similar messages growing up, if they had a mom, a dad, a grandma, a caretaker, a pediatrician, someone who's also given the same message, you have such a pretty face, you should lose a few pounds, or you're not going to find a partner if you don't lose weight, or whatever the messages are, you're eating too much. Well, they're, as a young child, now you can talk more about this most probably, but as a young child, they're hearing these messages, they're repeating it, they soak it up like a sponge, and they believe it to be true. Now it becomes their belief, and it slips into their subconscious mind. And then as they go through their life, that's what's driving their actions, and they're continuously now trying to change their body. And so it's really destructive. And I always say, to the women who are listening, and of course, men are also susceptible to this, but we're focusing on the women at this time. Um, it's not your fault. It is not your fault. I just want everybody to know that. And there is a way out of it.
Yeah. That is so important for people to understand that we can shift the programs and that mindset and we can make those changes. It does, like I said, take some time and it takes learning that trust, which we're going to talk more about here in a moment, I know. But like you said, from when we're at a very young age, in the very, very beginning, we're absorbing, right? Like you said, the little subconscious sponge, we're absorbing all of those things we're watching. People are modeling that for us. So
That's
parents and caregivers, teachers, doctors, the media, like you mentioned, all of these messages, all of these things that we're absorbing are forming our beliefs about ourselves, about our relationships, including with food, about the world around us and how we interact. And so it's really important to realize, like you said, that that is not your fault. Those are things that you have been exposed to that when people said things like, oh, you'd be so much prettier if you lost a few pounds, or if your mom was constantly putting you on the scale, or they were, trying to scale back on the things you were eating. And there was a lot of control around in your household. There's so many things that can contribute. And then, of course, those very hypnotic influences with the commercials and the media, and just do this and this will happen, or what you see with celebrities and on social media. And so many influence, really important. Is and instead of placing all of that judgment and that pressure and expectation on ourselves, that shame and that guilt of the shoulds. There's a lot of shoulds and have
Mm.
to in order to look like this, or in order to do this, you have to do that. And instead of all of those things, really tuning in and creating that trust and tuning inward versus outward. And so I would love, Bonnie, for you to share what you believe the three types of trust are that people need in order to never diet again, to get off of that diet roller coaster.
Yeah, I love that question. So I have broken it down into three trusts. The first is mind trust, and let me step back for a moment and say these three trusts are the three pillars of my signature program, my core program called Whole Body Trust, which is a program that helps women heal from dieting, chronic dieting, and disordered eating, because these are the three areas of trust that diets have taken away. So, mind trust, which is the first trust, is about believing in your own mind, your own beliefs. It's really looking at it's saying, hey, I don't need those external rules. I don't need to listen to somebody else telling me what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat, because I trust my own decisions. Why? How? Because during the mind trust work that you're doing, you're flipping those beliefs. You're identifying what were those harmful messages that actually impacted me doing this dieting roller coaster? What were those messages? What beliefs were formed that really have limited me, that have caused me to self sabotage? And then how can I flip them on their head, change my belief system? Because as you know, and we've talked about, right, if we can change our beliefs, then our our thoughts and our beliefs change our feelings, change our actions, change our results, right? It's in that. So that is the work that you need to really do. When people think intuitive eating, and I mentioned earlier about hunger and fullness, and people say, okay, Bonnie, so teach me, what is hunger and what is fullness, and I want to eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm full. And I'm like, well, we really need to do the mindset work first, because if you still are seeped in diet culture, if you still have what we call a diet mentality, you're going to question your hunger signals, right? You're going to be like, I think I'm hungry, but am I hungry? How can I be hungry? I just ate an hour and a half ago. I shouldn't be hungry, like the shoulds you mentioned. And so we've got to really work on the mind trust first. So by changing those beliefs and starting to shift out of that diet mentality and realize that, yeah, I am an intuitive eater. I can make my own decisions and I can eat in a way that feels good. and you really start to trust your ability to do that. So the mind trust, pillar, like you always, I'm sure you say, right? Like the mindset work, that is so crucial. It's so important, right? The second trust is hunger trust. So one of the things that we were sharing earlier is that we're born with the ability to know when we're hungry and stop when we're full, right? But we're disconnected from the signals. And so what happens? They go silent. And so the second trust is learning to connect back to the signals and trust them. So it's connection, it's listening, it's trusting, it's being able to distinguish between the different types of hunger. Physical hunger, so your body actually biologically saying, "Oh, I'm hungry, I need to be refueled right now," or emotional hunger, when we're eating due to emotions, distraction, sedation, or what have you. And so hunger trust is the start of you connecting back, igniting those hunger and fullness signals again. And then you finally have food trust. And here's the thing, everybody's nutritional needs are different. There's no cookie cutter solution. Every person's body, genetics, everything is made up differently, right? And so when you finally trust your food, what that means is you are trusting that you know what feels right for you in your body. Someone else doesn't need to tell you the what to eat, the how much to eat, because you're trusting that. You're learning to honor your health through nutrition, through your food choices, because at this stage, you've already connected back to your inner wisdom and to your guide. And so these are so, so very important in terms of learning to trust again, because these are the areas of trust that dieting has really taken away from you, but you can get them back.
It's so powerful to know that you can learn how to trust again.
Yeah.
And language is so powerful. It's so powerful. Like you said, good foods or bad foods,
Oh, yeah.
those
Yeah.
shoulds. And yeah, it really makes such a difference. And like you said, those underlying beliefs create our thoughts and our self talk, which often comes from on the outside, and then we internalize it. And then that creates our emotions and then influences our actions. And so it's really important, like you said, to start with that belief level and that root cause. I always say, if those underlying beliefs are going to cause little weeds to pop up, and
Mm,
then we keep mowing them over, and then they pop back up and we mow them over. It's time to figure out what that root is and heal that first, so
yeah.
that we're not dealing with those same challenges over and over again. And I know that happens so often with people, you said, who are up and down and yo-yo dieting. It's like we're not figuring out what's going on underneath the surface. So I think that's wonderful that you start there. Like you said, until you start there, the other things aren't going to be sustainable. And sustainable success is so, so key, because yeah, you can have success unsustainably and then go right back to where you don't want to
Yeah.
be.
That is
And
so powerful, what you just
so
said.
important. Yeah.
I think when we talk about trust, it's many women just don't trust their body anymore. They feel like their bodies have let them down. And so if we go even deeper along this idea of trust, it's trusting your body and really taking on the belief that my body does know what it needs. It does know, and it will guide me. It's trusting yourself, right? So they not only lose trust in their body, they just lose trust in themselves, their confidence. So it's like, yeah, trust that you have the confidence to, handle the emotional challenges that might come up around food. And you don't need all that set of rules to tell you what to do. And I think finally, it's trust the process. You mentioned before about it being a process. I think that's really important as well. It's understanding that it is a process and trusting that this process will help you heal your relationship with food and your body. And, there's no determining how long that process is for different people, right? Everybody has a different history they're coming into this process with, but just knowing that you will get there and it is well worth it. It is well worth it. and it's staying patient, and it's staying compassionate with yourself, right? Because you are moving away from dieting, and this is a slow process. For some, it might be quicker than others, but most of the women that will come to me are dieting like I want to say years, but I'm going to also say decades. So it's definitely a process that we start with that dismantling of the messages, and we move to the igniting of the signals, and then we ultimately move to learning what feels right in your body when you're making choices. So being compassionate and patient, and I think, and you probably agree, that patience and compassion is definitely not something the dieter is used to, because the dieter is always told results tomorrow, results in 6 weeks, or results in 30 days, so they're looking for that quick fix, and so there's no patience there. And as far as self-compassion, they're very good at being self-critical and judgmental and talking negative to themselves, and the voices that play in the head, which are so destructive. And so I really want people to really understand that it's a beautiful process, and learning to become patient and compassionate with yourself is just going to add so much to your life in so many other areas aside from food.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this work isn't only about your food that you eat and dieting. It really is a whole approach. And we're taught in our society a lot, our mind's over here and our body's over here, and we're very disconnected. And it's not true. And so, anytime you're working on your mindset in one area, it's going to positively influence those other areas as we're learning things like self compassion and giving ourselves grace and patience. That's going to transfer to all these other areas of our lives. And I know, as women age, especially, we often
Mm.
can feel pressure to regain control, which again, that mindset of being out of control of our bodies comes from that programming that we're disconnected,
Right.
that we we don't have that connection where there's that influence, but your mind directs your body. And so, how do you help women in your program shift their focus from that weight loss to help empower them to look at other health markers and other things that are going to reflect more overall well being and vitality, not just a number on a scale?
Yeah, I love that, because so many women, as we age, and whatever aging number means for you, whether it's after 40, after 50, but really our bodies change. There's so many changes that happen. And when weight losses continue to be pushed, it's very, very challenging. And so what I do is I emphasize the importance of just moving beyond the scale, right? Let's not focus on numbers, and really let's focus on how you feel day to day. We're going to focus on your energy levels. We're going to focus on your digestion. We're going to focus on your sleep quality, your emotional health. There are so many other areas to focus on to help you achieve that health and vitality that you're striving for as you get older. Um, you know, there are indicators of the kind of things that I just mentioned. Those are the indicators of health as we age. It's not just about a number. It's not just about a weight. We talk about the importance of strength as we get older, mobility important, right? Maintaining independence as women age, also very important and empowering to women. And honestly, like, when we can take the scale out of the equation, it does. And by the way, I recognize that especially as women age, they'll put on some excess pounds, through menopause and things like that. And they want to get rid of those pounds. But dieting is not the way to do it. Focusing on all of these other areas and all these other variables to improve your health, your well-being, your vitality, your strength, etc., will ultimately help your body land wherever it needs to land. And the other thing is so very important is, what quote unquote worked for a woman in her 20s, 30s, and even 40s is not necessarily what is right for you as you get older in your 50s and beyond. And so it's just kind of like stepping back and realizing there are other ways for me to start to feel better in my body.
That's so important because, like you said, we do have changes and shifts in hormones and metabolism,
Yeah.
and things might look and feel different. And so that's something that's really important. That I know you help women to navigate those changes when they're realizing that what worked in the past isn't what's working now. And they can get to learn more about themselves and their body in their current stage. Right. And that's so beautiful to be able to build that relationship with ourselves where we are now versus judging ourselves and comparing to maybe where we were when we were 20. It's really important to connect with ourselves in this moment. You think about all the people who hold on to clothes that they're hoping they'll get to fit into again, rather than thinking about what fits and feels really good right now. And I was reading this article, it's really interesting. They said people weren't smaller. If you go to vintage shops, all the clothes seem really tiny. And I hadn't thought about this before. That they
Mm-hmm.
said, no, it wasn't that people were smaller. There were women of all sizes and shapes always. But
Mm-hmm.
people didn't hold on to the clothes that they weren't trying to fit back into. How interesting is that? That the
Yeah.
reason why those things end up in those vintage shops is because those are the smaller clothes all the women in that diet culture were
Mm-hmm.
holding out hope that they were going to, magically fit into again. I know, I'm very different than I was when I was 20 or, when I
Of
got
course.
married and that wedding dress, and we all are. And so I think it's really important to love where we're at. And like I said, by reconnecting and learning areas of trust, we really can build that healthy relationships with ourselves in this moment, in the
I
present
want
day.
to I want to say two things about what you said about clothes. The first is those clothes that women hold on to are often clothes that they bought when they were dieting. So when
Yeah,
they were in their lowest weight, those are their dieting clothes. And so if you're holding on to those clothes with the hope that one day I want to fit into that, remind yourself that the weight you were when you bought those clothes was your dieting weight. And what we've said already is the weight loss through those restrictive diets are not sustainable. So getting rid of those clothes, and like you say, buying clothes that fit your here and now body makes a world of a difference. And then the other thing that I wanted to share is certainly as we get older, regardless of weight, your weight could be the same, but your weight shifts as you get older. It kind of goes and moves in
mhm,
different places. And so you could put on a dress that you had whenever, and it fits, but it doesn't look the same. It's not your fault. It's nothing you did or didn't do, but that is just part of the natural part of aging. And so I really help women understand their changing metabolism and how just things shift in their body. And there's with the goal of making intentional choices around nutrition and movement and sleep and stress management that actually help you feel good with who you are today, right? Without trying to say, but I've got to fit into that dress or it used to look good on me. Do you know what I mean?
I know. Yeah, I definitely know what you mean. And so, as we're kind of closing out our conversation, would you like to share any strategies that you can maybe offer to help people to rebuild that trust? Just places to start, because
Mm.
after so many years or decades of dieting and losing some of those body signs and signals, how can someone just start to tune back into that?
Look, I would say the first thing is to sit with yourself and be real and ask, am I still dieting? Because people will say I'm not dieting because they're not following a commercial diet, but their mind is still on a diet. They'll still wake up in the morning, I'm going to be really good today. Or these are the rules they have around their eating for the day. That is still dieting. So really kind of have an awareness always is the first step. Am I still dieting? and then work on shifting away, work on saying, I'm not putting conditions on food. As you then really start to connect back to your hunger and fullness, listening, am I hungry? Am I not hungry? Just paying full attention. When I work with my clients, we'll use various, hunger meters, fullness meters. We'll explore foods, how it feels in our body, things like that. But ultimately, like you said earlier, it's a process. And I think if somebody's starting, like, yeah, wow, I've resonated with this conversation, everything Bonnie and Jodie have said. And I guess I am dieting in whatever way that looks for you. It's really starting first with the mindset and the beliefs, and starting to give some thought to the work that you want to do around that. Because once you change your beliefs, you'll see how this process unfolds for you in a beautiful way.
Absolutely. It's such an important place to start. Well, Bonnie, this has been such an amazing conversation. I'm so grateful to have had this with you today, and I hope that everyone watching got so much out of it. Would you please go ahead and in the comments put your link to your website where they can see your programs? Because I know that there are going to be people out there who want to learn more about intuitive eating and what you offer. And then
Yeah.
I will put mine up to people if they would like to connect with me. Of course, can comment here below the videos, or they can also go my website as well. So I'm going to show both of ours. So Bonnie's website is dietfreeradiantme.com. I love that name. It's so
Yeah.
beautiful because that's what
Mhm.
it's all about, right? Being diet
Right.
free, embracing your radiant you. I think that that is,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
spot on with what you do. Absolutely. So anyone who wants to learn about your programs can go there. And if anyone would like to connect with me to, again, that whole care team is so important, and to do some deeper work around maybe some of those generational patterns that you have picked up, or some of those really deeply held beliefs that have been not serving and supporting you in a lot of areas of your life, and maybe affecting you when it comes to your relationship with yourself and others in a lot of areas. They can go to my website at psychedupsuccess.com. So Bonnie, anything you'd like to say to close out everyone
I,
watching?
I I love this conversation. I could talk about it all day, as I'm sure you could. I want to share with the audience that right now I do have a new program geared towards women over 50. It is called Elevate, a holistic approach to achieving your quote unquote best body through intentional living. And you will be coming and being a guest speaker for the ladies as well. So if there is any woman, 50 or over, but someone reached out and she's like, but I'm 45. And I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. Yes, it's for women as we
That's
get
where I
older.
am. They are
I know.
welcome.
Okay, there you go. Okay. So as we get older, as we said, there are changes to our body. And yes, stubborn pounds that have come on, fatigue, the lack of energy and so on. And I'm going to be addressing all of that within this program, Elevate. So for anybody that wants more information on that, they can feel free to message me on Facebook, Bonnie R. Giller, or on Instagram at Bonnie R. Giller. Reach out to me somehow, and then we can get on a call and I can just kind of lay it all out for you and see if it's right. We are starting on September 23rd. So we have a couple of days. So yeah, so jump in now if you're interested in learning more about that. And Jodie, I'm excited. The ladies who've already joined are excited to hear from you and learn from you. So it's wonderful.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, like you said, I mean, it starts around where I'm at, where we're dealing with all the fun perimenopausal types of challenges. And I find it once you hit, it's every decade there's a different change in just our metabolism and our bodies and our hormones. And so absolutely, I think it's so important for women to have that community as well with others that are going through a similar journey, because there's so much that we need support around that often we try to do it all by ourselves. And so a program like yours, having you with your expertise and that support and that guidance, and then also being with other women who are going through those similar but very unique journeys. We can move forward together and be really
Absolutely.
strong and empowered and really learn how to connect with ourselves. And it's wonderful to have that support. So I highly recommend anyone who this piqued your interest today to join Bonnie's program, and you get to see both of us in there. I can't wait to guest speak for you.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Meditation and breathing, breath work, all of it. It's going to be wonderful.
Holistic approach. Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody so much for watching. Thanks again, Bonnie, for joining me today. And yes, reach out to either one of us if you have any questions. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care, everyone.
Bye.